A small town, a quiet night, and two teenagers whose friendship ended in a chilling crime. What could drive a 17-year-old to stab her former best friend? Why did she stand there, cold and emotionless, as her victim bled out? And what did the police find in her phone that shocked everyone? This is the story of Brianna and Halia.
Brianna Barazzini is charged with the murder of 17-year-old Halia Culbertson.
A feud fueled by social media, a fight that turned deadly, and a community left asking, how could this happen? Stick around, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything you think you know about teenage violence, justice, and the power of redemption. The story begins in Franklin County, Ohio, in March 2023. It was just another night at a local smoke shop, a place where people usually go to relax, not to fight. But that night, two teenagers, Brianna Barazzini and Halia Culbertson, crossed paths, and their encounter turned deadly. Brianna and Halia used to be friends, but things had turned sour between them. Witnesses say there was bad blood brewing for years. That night, inside the smoke shop, Brianna accused Halia of using drugs. For Halia, who was a recovering addict, this was a deeply personal insult. She didn't take it lightly. Halia decided to wait outside the store, seemingly ready to confront Brianna. What started as an argument quickly escalated into a fight. Witnesses filmed the altercation, and what they captured was shocking. The two girls were throwing punches, but then something unexpected happened. Brianna pulled out a knife. The fight ended with Halia bleeding heavily from her neck. She stumbled back to her car, covered in blood, while Brianna stood there, almost emotionless. Halia was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. She didn't survive her injuries. When the police arrived, they found a chaotic scene. Witnesses were screaming, Halia's family was in shock, and Brianna, she was calm, too calm. Her eerie reaction left everyone unsettled. What could make a teenager react this way after taking someone's life? This is just the beginning of a story that gets darker with every twist. Stick around, because what happens next will leave you questioning everything you think you know about human nature. The first officers to arrive at the smoke shop found Halia Culbertson in critical condition. She was being rushed to the hospital, but the scene was far from under control. Witnesses were frantic and emotions were running high. One of the first people officers spoke to was Halia's sister, who was visibly distraught. Brianna stabbed her. They were fighting, and I saw it happen, she told the police. Another witness, a young man in a red hoodie, had filmed the entire fight on his phone. This video would later become a key piece of evidence. In the footage, you can see Brianna and Halia arguing, then throwing punches. But what you don't see clearly is the moment Brianna pulls out the knife. The witness in the red hoodie told police, I didn't even see a knife. It all happened so fast. 1 minute they were fighting, and the next, Halia was bleeding. But here's where things get interesting. The police quickly identified Brianna as the suspect. Witnesses knew her by name, and some even knew where she lived. One person told the officers, she lives in Westerville. I know her mom. They've had issues for years. As the investigation continued, the police discovered something shocking. Brianna had tried to hide the evidence. Her clothes were in the washing machine, and the knife she used was hidden in a crawl space at her home. This raised a big question. Was this a crime of passion, or was it premeditated? The police arrested Brianna and took her to the station for questioning, but her behavior during the interrogation was anything but normal. She sat quietly, her head down, barely reacting as the detectives laid out the charges against her. Halia didn't survive her injuries, one detective told her. We're charging you with murder. Brianna's response? Almost nothing. No tears, no panic, just a cold, eerie calmness that left even the experienced detectives unsettled. But here's where things took a surprising turn. During the interrogation, the detectives revealed that they had found the knife Brianna used hidden in a crawl space at her home. They also discovered that she had tried to wash her clothes, possibly to remove any evidence. Do you understand what this means? The detective asked. We have the weapon, we have witnesses, and we have video evidence. This doesn't look good for you. Brianna's response was chilling. I want to call my mom, she said, her voice steady and emotionless. But the real shock came when the detectives revealed something even more disturbing. They had found messages on Brianna's phone, including one where she had written, "I will cut that bee if she tries showing up to my family's home again." This message suggested that Brianna had been planning something violent long before the fight at the smoke shop. It raised a critical question. Was this a crime of passion, or was it premeditated? The detectives pressed Brianna for answers, but she remained silent, her face blank. Her calm demeanor only added to the mystery. What was going through her mind? Was she in shock, or was there something darker at play? As the case went to trial, the courtroom became a battleground. On one side, the prosecution argued that Brianna Barozzini had planned the attack. On the other, her defense claimed it was self-defense. But what really happened? And how did the families cope with the emotional toll of the trial? Let's break it down. The trial began in the summer of 2024, and tensions were high. The prosecution presented a strong case, highlighting the evidence against Brianna: the hidden knife, the washed clothes, and the chilling text message where she had threatened Halia. This was not a random act of violence, the prosecutor argued. Brianna Barozzini planned this attack. She had the knife ready, and she knew exactly what she was doing. But Brianna's defense team had a different story. They argued that Brianna had acted in self-defense. According to them, Halia was the aggressor. She had slapped Brianna first, and Brianna had only pulled out the knife to protect herself. This was a fight that got out of hand, the defense attorney said. Brianna didn't intend to kill anyone. She was scared and reacted in the heat of the moment. The courtroom was divided. On one side, Halia's family sat in tears, clutching photos of their daughter. On the other, Brianna's family looked on, their faces filled with worry and disbelief. But the most emotional moment came when Halia's family took the stand to give their victim impact statements. Halia's grandmother spoke first, her voice trembling with grief. Halia was only 17, she said. She had her whole life ahead of her, but now she's gone, and we'll never get to see her grow up, get married, or have children. This loss is unbearable. Halia's sister also spoke, her words filled with anger and pain. Brianna took my sister's life, she said, but she also took my happiness, my smile, and the best part of me. Every time I want to talk to Halia, I have to go to her grave. It's not fair. Even Brianna herself spoke during the trial, though her words were met with mixed reactions. I understand the pain I've caused, she said. I live with this guilt every day. I pray for Halia's family and for my own family who have suffered because of my actions. In the end, the judge sentenced Brianna to 3 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter, the maximum allowed under the law. But for many, the sentence felt too light. The trial was over, but the story was far from finished. For Halia's family, the pain of losing their daughter would never go away. For Brianna's family, the guilt and shame of what she had done weighed heavily. And for the community, the case raised bigger questions about justice, mental health, and how we prevent tragedies like this from happening again. Let's take a closer look. After the trial, Halia's family struggled to move on. Every holiday, every birthday, every milestone was a painful reminder of what they had lost. Halia's sister, in particular, found it hard to cope. I relive that night in my head every day, she said. I see Halia in my arms, bleeding, and I hear myself screaming for help. It's a nightmare I can't wake up from. For Brianna's family, the aftermath was just as difficult. They had to face the harsh reality of what she had done and the pain it had caused. Brianna's mother, in particular, was torn between supporting her daughter and grappling with the guilt of what had happened. I love my daughter, she said, but I can't ignore the pain she's caused. It's something we'll have to live with for the rest of our lives. Brianna herself was sent to the Ohio Reformatory for Women, where she began serving her 3-year sentence. But even behind bars, the questions about her actions and her mental state lingered. Was she truly remorseful, or was there something deeper going on? The case also sparked a broader conversation in the community. Many people wondered how a teenager could commit such a violent act and what could have been done to prevent it. We need to do more to address mental health issues in young people, one community leader said. We need to provide better support systems and intervene before things escalate to this level. Others questioned the justice system. Was a 3-year sentence enough for taking someone's life? Or did the system fail Halia and her family? What could drive a teenager to commit such a brutal act of violence? And why did Brianna Barozzini react with such eerie calmness after the crime? To understand this, we need to dive into the psychological aspects of the case. Let's explore what experts have to say. When the news of Brianna's crime broke, many people were left wondering, how could a teenager do something so violent? Psychologists and criminologists who analyzed the case pointed to several possible factors. First, there's the issue of impulse control. Teenagers are still developing the part of their brain that helps them think through consequences and control their impulses. In high-stress situations, they're more likely to act without thinking. Teenagers are more prone to impulsive behavior, one psychologist explained. In a heated argument, they might lash out in ways they wouldn't if they had time to calm down and think. But Brianna's calm demeanor after the crime raised another question. Was there something deeper going on? Some experts suggested that her lack of emotion could be a sign of emotional detachment or even psychopathic tendencies. People who show little to no emotion after committing a violent act often have difficulty empathizing with others, a criminologist said. This doesn't necessarily mean they're psychopaths, but it's a red flag that something isn't right. Then there's the issue of premeditation. The text message Brianna sent before the crime, where she threatened to cut Halia, suggested that she had been thinking about violence for some time. This raised questions about whether the crime was planned or if it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Premeditation changes everything, the criminologist added. If she had been planning this, it shows a level of intent that goes beyond a simple fight. Finally, there's the question of mental health. While there's no evidence that Brianna had a diagnosed mental illness, her behavior, both during and after the crime, suggested that she might have been struggling with unresolved issues. We need to look at the bigger picture, the psychologist said. What was going on in her life that led to this? Was she dealing with trauma, anger, or something else? In today's world, social media and peer pressure play a huge role in shaping how teenagers behave. Could these factors have influenced Brianna Barozzini's actions? Let's take a closer look at how the digital world and social dynamics might have contributed to this tragic event. The fight between Brianna and Halia didn't just happen out of nowhere. According to witnesses, the two had been arguing for years, and much of their conflict played out online. Social media became a battleground for their feud, with both girls posting cryptic messages and indirect jabs at each other. They were always going back and forth on social media, one friend said. It was like they couldn't let things go. Every little comment or post would set them off. This constant online tension created a toxic environment. Instead of resolving their issues face-to-face, Brianna and Halia let their anger fester in the digital world. And when they finally confronted each other in person, the result was explosive. But social media wasn't the only factor. Peer pressure also played a role. Witnesses said that both girls had friends who encouraged the feud, often egging them on to settle things in person. There was a lot of drama in their friend group, another witness said. People were always taking sides, and it made things worse. It was like they were being pushed into this fight. This raises an important question. Did Brianna feel pressured to prove herself? Was she trying to save face in front of her friends? Experts say that teenagers are especially vulnerable to peer pressure, and the desire to fit in or appear tough can lead to dangerous situations. Teenagers often act out to gain approval from their peers, a psychologist explained. In some cases, this can lead to violence, especially if they feel like they have something to prove. The combination of social media drama and peer pressure created a perfect storm. What started as a feud between two friends escalated into a deadly confrontation, leaving everyone wondering, could this have been prevented? Tragedies like the one involving Brianna Barozzini and Halia Culbertson leave us with more questions than answers, but they also give us an opportunity to reflect and learn. What can we do to prevent something like this from happening again? Let's explore the lessons we can take away from this case. One of the biggest lessons from this case is the importance of conflict resolution. Brianna and Halia's feud had been brewing for years, but instead of addressing their issues, they let their anger fester. This highlights the need for better communication skills, especially among teenagers. We need to teach young people how to resolve conflicts in a healthy way, a psychologist said. Ignoring problems or letting them escalate online only makes things worse. We need to provide better access to mental health resources for teenagers, the psychologist added. Early intervention can make a huge difference. The case also highlights the dangers of social media and peer pressure. The constant online drama and the influence of friends created a toxic environment that ultimately led to violence. Parents and educators need to be more aware of what's happening online, a community leader said. We need to teach teenagers how to navigate social media in a healthy way and resist peer pressure. The loss of Halia Culbertson left a deep scar on the community. She was only 17, with her whole life ahead of her, and her death served as a wake-up call for many. As we close this chapter, let's remember that every action has consequences, and every life has value. Let's strive to be kinder, to resolve conflicts peacefully, and to support those who are struggling. And let's never forget the power of community to heal, to grow, and to create change.